on the West Coast, and good afternoon to the people on the East Coast. Thank you for being here for today's summit. We're going to try to start on time and end on time because we know that everyone has a lot of things on their plates to do right now. Let me introduce myself. My name is Paul Kawada. I'm the director of the National Minority AIDS Council. And while we're waiting for more people to join us, we're going to walk through some of the logistics for today's meeting, as well as give you an overview to what we're going to be trying to achieve. Let's start with some logistics. Number one, if you look on your right-hand side, there is a thing that says Go to Webinar Control Box. If you look at that box, there are two sections. There's a section that says questions, and there's a section that says chats. If you put your questions that you have for us in the questions section, we will have the voice in the sky. Say hello, Chip.
Hello.
Who will be answering those questions or forwarding them on to us as we go through this webinar. So please open them up right now so that you can see if there's anything there. Chip, why don't you post my email address so that everyone will have my email address. If you are having any trouble with the sound, what we recommend is that you turn it off and turn it back on again, log out and log back in again, because we did notice that some people had some sound challenges during the first presentation. The final thing in terms of logistics is at the end of this webinar, there will be a evaluation form. It is critical for us that you fill out that evaluation form because, sorry, look at that. See, that's another thing you could do. Turn off your phones. But if you could fill out the evaluation form, because we really want your blunt criticism and critique. This is a brand new learning forum for us, and we are trying to understand it both in terms of what it can do and what it can't do. And so any issues that you may have, please feel free to list them in the final evaluation that will go out at the end of this piece. Fourth thing is you should have all received a copy of the PPP that is going up tomorrow on many bank sites. If you did not get a copy of the PPP, which is the application form for the grants, please put in your questions, your name and email address to Chip so that he can send it to you after this meeting is over. So welcome everybody. We're almost up to the full amount. To those of you who know, we limited it to 100 because we were concerned about getting too much bigger than that. However, we've understood that a lot of people couldn't get in. And so what you should know is this is going to be a series of webinars that we're going to be doing every week. Next week, we will increase the size so that more people can get on, and that this is a longer term commitment, that NMAC will be meeting with all of you once a week while we are all asked to stay at home, as a way to kind of share information and understand what's happening. So let me give you kind of what we're trying to achieve today. There are a couple of things that I think are important for you to know. Number one, NMAC is not an expert on the PPP program. That's really, really important. And PPP stands for Paycheck Protection Program, which is what we're here to discuss. We are not an expert. So why did we put together this forum, and why did we invite all of you to come and talk to us? We did that because we're very concerned that this is a program that is going to be run through the banks. And historically, banks have not always been good to communities of color, to the LGBTQ community, particularly the transgender community, to women, and to people who use drugs. And so what we want to do is work with our constituents to help them understand that this needs to be a program for everyone and not just for people with access. And so we're going to be working with you over this next time period to monitor your success at being able to get these loans. And what we're talking about here are loans. And there is the possibility of forgiveness, but we will go through that in a little bit. And the fourth thing that I guess I want you to know is that this was not the last stimulus package. there is going to be another stimulus and maybe even another one after that. And so part of what we also want to talk about are what are the things that should be in the next stimulus packages, and how can we make sure to keep our movement whole. That's really the goal here, folks. The goal here is to help the HIV movement keep its organizations and infrastructure as whole as possible during these very difficult times. That this is an opportunity for you to make up some of the lost revenue that you may have achieved during this time of sequestration. And that what I'd like you to do as we go through this is, try to document what you're losing so that we can all make sure and figure out solutions for your challenges. And the final thing that I will say is that thank you for doing your work. This is a scary time, and I don't have the answers, but I figured it's better if we talk to each other. It's better if we try to work together to figure this out. And so this is NMAC's first attempt at trying to figure it out. We will make a few mistakes, but I want you to know that we're in your corner and that we're fighting for you. So let me tell you kind of who's here with me today. First person I'm going to introduce. So when we put this together, we realized that we needed to have an accountant. We needed to have someone who knew finances. And so we invited BDO to be a part of this session. So Alvin, why don't you explain who you are and why you're here?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alvin D'Souza, and I am the Finance Director for Accounting as well for NMAC, outsourced through BDO. BDO is one of the leading professional firm providing assurance, tax, and advisory services. So we do a lot of things for everybody, like both public and private companies, including not-for-profits. And we do a lot of things for NMAC because we are their finance guys, providing all the services. So in case if you happen to need any kind of assistance in processing your applications, finding ways, and getting signed off feedbacks, so please feel to contact us. So I believe Chip will post the email address so you can directly get in touch with us, or you can also float it through NMAC. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we feel very fortunate to be able to outsource all of our financial accounting to BDO. It has really provided us with a level of comfort and assurance in terms of expending our government contracts. The next person that I want to introduce you to, and the person who's going to be walking us through the PowerPoint presentation, is our Director of Government Relations. Joe, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your history?
Sure, thank you, Paul, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Huang Raquelto. I'm the relatively new Director of Government Relations and Public Policy at NMAC. Prior to that, on June 1st of 2017, I retired after 23 years on Capitol Hill. Started off with former Senator Ted Kennedy, worked on the Ryan White Reauthorization Act back in the 90s, and then for a bulk of my career, 15 years with former Congressman Barney Frank, which is kind of relevant here because he was chairman of the Financial Services Committee. And then I ended in later, 2017 with now Chairwoman Roybal Allard, DHS Subcommittee on Appropriations. So I'm really thankful to be here and in this time. And Paul, thank you for your leadership in trying to put these together. We will go through the PowerPoint relatively quickly. It'll only take a few minutes because it's not a pretty lengthy bill, or this section of the bill. So it'll take only a few minutes to get through it. I do want to kind of echo a little bit what Paul said. These series of webinars will be forthcoming. We're targeting a weekly webinar on the CARES Act and the impact it's going to have on our committee or on our community. And also, there are going to be, we believe, as Paul indicated, two, perhaps even more stimulus packages coming through. They are talking about a phase 4, which is going to, my understanding, revolve around transportation and infrastructure, but I know that our partners on the federal level, we are actively engaged with Congress to make sure that A, HIV funding is not reprogrammed for a stimulus, and B, obviously, like every other entity in the health arena, we have to fight hard for more funding. And we are, I think, strategizing ways to use the phase 4 stimulus to get more funding for our cause. So with that said, I just want to dive right into this presentation. The paycheck, what we were calling the PPP, it's a section of the CARES Act, as you know, which was passed by Congress, a $2.2 trillion bill. This program is a federally guaranteed loan program administered by the bank, but guaranteed through the SBA, the Small Business Administration. The reason why that is important is because a normal SBA loan takes between 5 and 8 months to process. Congress recognized the urgency to get these funds immediately into nonprofits and small businesses, so they will be processed through your local bank, which we'll get into in a minute. It is important that the loans, if you apply for a loan, it's a simple application, and like Paul said, Chip has got everybody's email. The loan application is very basic. It's, I think, 2 pages and then 1 checklist page. If the conditions are met within 8 consecutive weeks, the loan morphs into a grant and is not, no repayment is required. That is, the SBA will suspend all payments for 6 months, and at the end of the 6 months, it morphs into a grant. Question is, are you eligible? Is a nonprofit eligible? They sure are. If they have less than 500 employees and are IRS listed as a 501c3, it's important to note that this includes full and part-time employees. What are the banks going to look for when you apply? First of all, the deadline to apply starts tomorrow, and it ends on June 30th of this year. The time that Congress was concerned about that you can apply for financial relief will retroactively go back to February 15th and will end on June 30th. Their lenders are going to look for a good faith certification. Don't get carried away with that or get caught up with the word certification. It's essentially saying, yes, we agree that we need this funding. The proceeds will go towards retaining our workforce, and we don't have another loan process in the loan application in the process. I want to just emphasize here, the whole purpose of this, the whole purpose of the PPP is to keep the open sign on the front door. They being this government is absolutely committed to keeping workers on the payroll. So the question is, okay, you are eligible to borrow. How much can you borrow? First, you can't go over 10 million. Second, you can borrow 2.5 times the borrower's, the nonprofit's average monthly payroll cost. They have to be related to salaries, vacation, all of the sick medical leave is covered. You can borrow to cover those expenses. Importantly, you can also borrow to cover all your health care, including premiums. You cannot borrow if the salaries, well, I'm not going to say that. For employees whose salaries are 100,000 or more, it'll be prorated, and excluded, of course, are federal and FICA taxes. I discussed a little bit that it'll be forgiven. All these loans are forgiven if the criteria is met. The payments are suspended for 6 months, and you can also wrap into that the utilities, the rent and mortgage, payroll, utilities. And of course, the loan forgiveness cannot exceed the principal. As I said, that was a short presentation. It should be noted that we want to give thanks to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for helping us provide the information that we are sharing with you here and online through our website. And now I think I'll open it up for questions for either myself, Paul, or Alvin.
So everybody, if you could look at the question section and ask your questions in there. But before we get started, can you tell us who's on the line? We have 100 people on. So tell us your name and your agency and where you're from. And Chip, will you tell us who responds?
Sure. We do have a few questions coming in already.
Why don't we do
So
the
do we get
names?
started with
Come back to the questions.
names first?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got Joe from the Interfaith Shelter Network in San Diego. We've got Tammy from Cerro Project in Nashua, Iowa. We've got Ria from Christie's Place in San Diego. We've got Janet from Quest Center, Dolph from Southwest Center in Phoenix. We have Sunny from the Life Group LA in Los Angeles. We have Kevin from Cerro Project. Richard Zaldivar from The Wall, Las Memorias. We have Blaine from Save Incorporated in Kansas City. We have Kelly from Pack Mountain, Olympia, Washington. We have Alicia from the Thurston County Chamber and Leadership, Thurston County, Olympia, Washington. We have Todd from the Gay and Lesbian Center of Southern Nevada. We have Cecilia from CAN Community Health in Arizona. As from, that's a good one? Okay. A lot of people on and letting us know where they're from, so we appreciate that. So let's go back to the questions.
So let's go to the first question, Chip.
Would 401k contributions and workers' comp be included in the monthly payroll figures?
Two things that I can say to you, and I want to say this again, we're not the experts. And so what we will give you the answers with the best knowledge that we have right now. But what's really important for you to do is fill out the application at your bank. There are a couple of things that you should know though. The forms are supposed to go up tomorrow. However, we understand that many of the banks have not been contacted yet. And so they're very unclear about what their responsibility is. I had the opportunity to speak with NMAX Bank Capital One yesterday, and she said as of yesterday, they still hadn't gotten anything from the SBA, and that their knowledge of it was the same as our knowledge for what was first written. So as someone said to me, this might be similar to the rollout of Obamacare, and that those first couple of days may be a little challenging. And so what I want you to understand is that while you are doing this, do not get frustrated. There is nobody knows all of the answers right now. And the banks are extraordinarily worried because not only are these loans for nonprofits, but they're also for small businesses. And if you look at the numbers, just the tens of thousands, if not the hundreds of thousands of small businesses that have been impacted by the shutdown, you'll understand why banks are so worried and why it may take a little bit of time. Now, with that question said, I'm going to turn it over to Alvin to see if he knows the answer.
Based on the information that we have, benefits are covered as part of the loan application. And I believe 401k, if it is part of the benefits, so that should be part of the application process as well. But as Paul mentioned, the best way is to approach the bank who would be giving you the guidance, or take advice from the experts who will ultimately walk you through as you get this application process done.
Great, next question.
Is this a competitive process?
No. Next question.
1 second here. I need to scroll down past all the names of folks here. 1 second.
And Paul, while we're waiting, I just want to say that we recognize, as Paul indicated earlier, we recognize that minority-owned small businesses and minorities in general have been discriminated against based on credit. We are making every attempt at NMAC to identify bad apples in this process. Going live shortly on our website will be 2 links that if you feel that you have been a victim of discrimination based on credit, there is 2 areas that you can address that, obviously on the state level through your Attorney General's office, or we will provide a link to file a federal complaint. And of course, I will be more than happy to accommodate anybody that feels that they've been turned away. And the second thing is, I think importantly, we are very focused on the minority health disparities across the country. And part of this CARES Act, NMAC joined with other minority-driven organizations And we were also successful to get protections for minority-owned businesses to the tune of about 10 million. So that's also included in the CARES Act. But I wanted to emphasize that point of discrimination because I think it is absolutely unacceptable, and we at NMAC will do everything we can to help you address that if you feel you're a victim.
Next question.
In the form where it asks for monthly payroll expenses, should we include health insurance, et cetera?
So the form is not complete and it's missing two categories. It's missing one for your mortgage and your mortgage interest or your lease payment for your building, and it is missing that. We're hoping that this was just an early form that we got sent, and that when the final form, there will be separate categories for all of those pieces.
For small nonprofits with no paid staff, this will not be helpful, right? Is the money only used for payroll, or can it be used to pay rent and expenses?
The money can be used to pay rent, and it can be used to pay utilities. And so you can both apply for it. Remember, there are two components. There's a loan component to this, and then there's a forgiveness of loan component. So you can apply for a loan to cover expenses like rent and utilities. And utilities is electrical, it's phone, it's internet, and so you can apply for a loan for all of that. In terms of forgiveness of that loan, I'm not sure, and I would speak to my bank. Part of the challenge is that the purpose of this loan is to keep people employed. And so I don't know what it means in terms of if there are no paid employees.
Yeah, there is a catch there that a certain percentage of the loan has to be going for salaries. So if you're a volunteer organization, as Paul said, the option would be a loan, an SBA loan. And Alvin, what is the interest rate on a COVID-19 SBA loan? It's low.
The interest rate is pretty low. I don't want to give an exact number rate at this point because I think there is various versions of the rates being, being announced. So we would know for sure by tomorrow, maybe by Monday next week. So what would be the rate like? But it's pretty low. It's very, very attractive loan interest.
And you don't have to make your first payment for 6 months. And so that there are some good options here to help people through these difficult times. Next question.
I assume that salaries that are covered by HOPWA funding or similar grant can't be covered by this loan.
So there's two things that we want to respond to because we got this question last time. First thing we want to say is that after the first meeting, I sent an invitation to Dr. Laura Cheever at HRSA to come and speak to all of us next week. I'm still waiting to hear from her, but hopefully we'll ask HRSA specifically to clarify this. What I will tell you is that in practice, it is illegal to double dip. And what double dip means is to take money from the federal government to pay for this through the PPP program and to take money for this and pay for it through the Ryan White Care program. And that we think is probably illegal. However, what isn't illegal is you may not have the money to pay the salaries right now, and so you can take out a loan to pay for those salaries. But if that loan is going to be reimbursed, it's got to be reimbursed first by the primary payer, which would be, in this case, the Ryan White Care Act. Next question.
Will the slides be provided? Yes, I can answer that. Yes, a recording of the webinar will be available on the COVID-19 page of the NMAC website tomorrow. Next question. Can you explain the 100,000 per rate cap?
Yeah. So what that basically means is that if you have employees that make more than $100,000 a year, you can only get a loan, and you can only get a forgiven loan up to 100,000. That's prorated per the 2-month period of your loan. And so if you have someone who makes in excess of that amount, you're going to have to calculate it down to $100,000. However, if you have staff who make less than that, you cannot credit them for 100,000. It's got to be for their real salary amount. Next question.
If they decide not to forgive the loan, do you know what the interest rate would be?
We do not know at this time. We think it's going to be very low. We are hoping that it is less than 1%, but we don't have final clarification.
Similar question before. Will these loans take into account payroll covered by grant funds?
So once again, we are going to be asking Dr. Cheever from HRSA to come and talk with us next week. What I would suggest to you, though, is that as a principle, it's probably illegal to double dip and not something that we would recommend.
What's the turnaround on these applications?
I wish we knew. You know, I think that so the administration wants to tell you that it's going to come out very, very quickly within a couple of weeks. I think the reality is that because banks don't have their mechanism in place, and banks are not open, it is going to be a really interesting online process to figure this one out. And what you're seeing is competing interests. And what I mean by that is that I think the administration would like it just to be an online application, and that once it gets approved, they will send you the check immediately. I think banks will want to do some verification of the statements on the loan application. And so what they're challenged with is looking at who has the liability for those applications. And the question that banks want is the banks obviously want the government to have that liability. And I think that I don't know what the government wants, but I'm assuming they're assuming that banks shoulder a certain amount of responsibility around the verification of the information. But maybe not. We'll see. Let's go on.
Is the 2.5 times the payroll amount figure for an annual sum or 6-month sum? And can you include utilities, rents, and mortgages into that figure?
So this is the maximum amount of money for your loan. This is not the maximum amount of money that can be forgiven. And there are two different things. For the maximum amount of money for your loan, it's 2.5 months, not 2.5 years of payroll. And that's really important. It's the average that you have for the last in fiscal year 2019 through January of 2019 and 20, I'm sorry. And what you're looking at is what is the average amount of your payroll during that time period, and you can per month, and you can do 2.5 times that for your loan.
And that maxes out at 10 million.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Next question.
Can we submit an application online?
Yes, that is the only way you can do it. Joe, you can talk.
Sure. Yeah, with the obvious shutdown and mandatory shutdowns, the branches aren't open. So I'm assuming there will be a pretty strong portal. We can only hope through your private bank. And let me say that if the bank isn't an SBA loan provider, there is an effort by the Department of Treasury to include all FDIC insured banks. So all banks in this country obviously are FDIC insured. So there is that effort to roll out this program, this application to all FDIC insured banks. And if your bank isn't one of those providers and that rollout doesn't happen quick enough, you can go to a bank that does provide these loans. And they have to process that loan application because it's an SBA loan.
But that's where we get very concerned about discrimination and about communism. And that's why we're having these calls, is that we're concerned that many of us do not bank at banks that give these kinds of loans. And so going cold turkey to a new bank may delay the processing of the loan. Next question.
How do we know if our loan will be forgiven? Is there criteria we have to meet?
Yeah. So at the end of so the SBA will suspend all payments for, I think it was 6 months, and then there's an 8 consecutive weeks that you have to maintain your employment. Again, this is primarily based on keeping people on the payroll. And after that 8 weeks, if I can use this term, it morphs into a grant. So the loan will be forgiven.
But you must be employees, and you cannot reduce their salaries more than 25% without having it impact your loan, your forgiveness. Once again, talk to your bank. Next question.
Is this an interest-free loan? And if not, what is the rate?
So this is the one where it is not an interest-free loan, but we believe it's going to be a low interest rate loan. And we believe it is going to be, we had thought it was going to be a little higher, but we think it might be under 1%. That will come out tomorrow when the applications are public. Next question, Jim.
Can you provide more details on what is considered as part-time? Looking at peers who receive a stipend.
I don't know that. Alvin, do you know how to, I don't know that one. How do they define part-time?
I don't know precisely, but I believe anybody who is working 25 hours, I believe, a week, and who also is eligible for benefits. So anybody who getting a stipend probably is not covered under this, but the employees who are getting payroll and part-time employees, I believe it would be 25 hours a week. But the best option would be, you know, when you fill up the application, there would be those experts who will guide you through and help you out, including your banks, where you have to get more information on.
Next question.
Do new businesses qualify for the SBA loan?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Sorry, do new businesses qualify for the SBA loan?
No, you have to have been in business. You have to have had your 501c3 by February 15th. If you had your 501c3 as of February 15th, then you are eligible. If you did not, then you are not.
If we apply to this one, will it make us ineligible for future stimulus?
Joe?
I would say, but look, I don't know. My guess would be no, but I don't want to get into the guessing. I don't think there's any disclaimers that would make you ineligible. Look at, if you want to take a loan out through the SBA normal process, you can, and I think you can have, you know, different loans there. But I think it would be a terrible call for Congress to do that, to put those restrictions on. But at the end of the day, I don't know.
And I think we also have to look at, there's a difference between having multiple SBA loans and having a SBA loan that is forgiven. And that, so there will be unique issues around the forgiven component of this loan. Next question.
Sure. One second. I'm replying to someone with a clarification on their question. Next question. Do I need to take this application my nonprofit organization to complete?
Yes, it needs to be from a nonprofit. Only 501c3 organizations can apply. This is not available to individuals. Individuals have other pieces within the CARES program that they can apply for, and we'll be talking about that at a future webinar. This program is only available to 501c3 and small businesses with fewer than 500 employees.
Okay. Question with multiple questions. In the indication when the loan becomes forgivable, do we have to account for and submit reports forms indicating how this money was used? Do we know if there are penalties or other catch-up payments if we are out of compliance with the stipulations? And when would money be received?
Alvin.
Yeah. In the first instance, we do not know when the process of forgiveness. I believe initially the main thing is to apply for the loan and get the loan. And then the process of what needs to be reported on a monthly basis or quarterly basis after the fact is something that you will know once the application is approved. And with the approval, probably you will get a list of all the things you need to do, you know, to comply with the forgiveness, if at all you are eligible, and how much it would be, and then what criteria you need to follow. So that is something need to follow down the road. So it would be something that will come to you guys once you have gotten your application processed and approved, and you will get a list of things that follows.
In other words, I think nobody knows right now. I don't even think banks know the answer to those questions. And I think that they're working very, very hard to figure them out. And as soon as we hear something, we will post it on our webpage. But the bottom line is no one has the answers just yet, except for maybe Mnuchin. Next question.
What are the requirements for certifying that COVID led to a financial need for the organization? How is this supposed to be demonstrated?
That's your word. Basically, at this particular moment, they're taking your word that you have a need. There is not going to be a certification process to the best of our knowledge, because there's just too many businesses that are going to be applying, and it would be impossible to certify the hundreds of thousands of businesses and nonprofits that will be applying for these funds.
That's correct. It's simply a good faith certification that you will prove, you will say, yes, I need, and that's how it works, I believe.
Okay. Can you also include international employees in the payroll calculation?
No.
Can we include per diem costs as payroll costs?
No.
Can you include rent for more than one office?
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you can, as long as it's all domestic rent. I don't believe you can include rent for international offices, but if it's for domestic, then I think you can. However, once again, I would clarify with your bank. That's the first time that question has come up.
Next question, what can you tell us about the $10,000 emergency money? Will this money be in addition to the loan? How is it connected to the loan, and are we all eligible, and when would we get that?
We don't have that information. We can put that on our webpage. I'm sorry, but we just don't have that information.
Question, what about for student loans?
Once again, that's not a part of what this is about for us. There are other sections of the CARE Act that will talk about student loans and what will and won't be happening with them. We're not prepared to be able to speak on that.
If you terminate an employee for performance, does that count against the retention requirement?
Yes.
Can a person receive PARS for living workspace and still receive this funding, or would that be filed differently?
CARS? C-A-R-S?
PARS, P-A-R-S.
I don't know what that is.
I don't
Joe,
know.
you know what that is?
No.
I'm sorry, I don't know what PARS is, so I apologize.
Sure. Can you, whoever asked the question, can you please clarify in the question section? Maybe we can circle back to that.
Yeah, we will. We'll try to put it on our webpage when we answer. But if you could clarify what a PARS is, we would appreciate it, because I'm sorry, I am ignorant of it.
How much should we ask for? 5 months of salary, or a year, or?
You can ask for up to 2.5 times. So the loan is for 2.5 times your average monthly salaries. That's how much, up to $10 million.
Yeah, starting with, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I believe the time frame is from February 15th to June 30th. I believe that's the time frame, right?
Yes.
So you probably want to take the month that had the largest payroll during that time period and multiply it times 2.5. And that's the amount up to 10 million that you could apply for.
Yeah, within that period, probably you will have one month there would be 3 payroll.
Now, when you're putting together this figure, which is different from other figures, you can also include vacation time, and you could also include insurance and health premiums. So basically your indirect rate as it relates to each employee. Next question.
As a follow-up to the question regarding Ryan White or HOPWell funded positions, can you ask only for the portion of the salary that would be paid by fundraised dollars that are lost due to event cancellation?
Absolutely, you can pay for that. Absolutely, that's what this is for. You can absolutely ask for it. I think the question that someone asked me that we don't have the answer for is, since you're getting this money, could you reprogram existing Ryan White dollars for other services? And I don't know the answer to that one, and we're waiting for Dr. Cheever to be able to respond to us.
So put the payroll amounts in the first box. What does the times 2.5 equals loan amount box mean? Just double the monthly salaries?
Yeah, it's 2.5 times your monthly salaries. Your monthly salary, set ease, if you're more than one person.
On the application, it asks for owners to have 20% ownership. For a nonprofit, is this the board president, or is it not applicable?
This is not applicable because nonprofits are not owned by anyone. They're here for the public good.
So employees added after January, we cannot include?
After February 15, I believe. But once again, I would speak to your bank because the last monthly period that you have for full month to be able to average it against is January of 2020.
What if I don't have a bank?
That's going to be the big challenge. You can apply for this program at any lending institution that does SBA 7A loans. The challenge is going to be where you fall in the queue and the fact that they're probably going to be working predominantly with their existing customers first. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply, because you absolutely should, but it's going to take a little bit of patience.
But
Is staff protection? Sorry, go.
yeah, go. Any not-for-profit organization, if it is a 501c3 registered, they will definitely have to have a bank account. So you know what, that I think that should be one of the requirements, right?
No, there isn't a requirement to have a bank account to have a 501c3. But I think that it's pretty hard to run one without one.
Right. Okay.
Next question.
Is the staff protection window of 8 weeks in addition to the 6 months?
No, it wouldn't be in addition to.
I don't know. Listen, obviously, we don't know the answer to that one, and you'll need to speak with your bank.
Are we asking for net or gross payroll dollars on application?
What's the difference?
It would be gross pay.
Gross pay.
If the loan is forgiven, does that include the additional funds for rent, utilities, et cetera?
Yes.
So it said IRS guidelines for part-time employees for 401k is 1,000 hours a year.
Okay. Thank you.
If you have a current SBA loan, are you eligible to apply for this loan as well?
Yes. If you have a current loan, it's a different question, and you'll need to speak with your bank about that.
Okay. Will administrative positions who do not have a contract under Ryan White or State Department be eligible? In other words, only one employee is not covered.
Yep. Then the one employee who's not covered is the employee who's eligible.
Okay. Let's see.
I apologize. I unfortunately have a CDC conference call that I need to step off into. So I'm going to leave you in the very capable hands of Joe and Alvin. Thank you all so much for joining this call today. I really do appreciate it. It is very, very important to fill out the evaluations. I guess I just want you to know that there is someone that's watching out, and we want to work together to get through these very difficult times. So to Joe and Alvin, thank you so much. And to everybody else, look for information, the next call for next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And our next question, someone who works for a small private medical practice that is a C corporation with very little profit, are they eligible for this?
Yeah, they're all small businesses under 500 people and employees are eligible.
Do you have to prove that without this funding, the organization would close?
No.
No, that would be part of your good faith effort, or yeah, your good faith word.
Are
Nor
contractors'
will they
pay
look
included?
into-
Oh,
I was just going to say, Chip, and nor will they look into reserves, et cetera.
okay. Are contractors' pay included?
No.
If we have significantly increased the number of employees in the last year, do we use our current payroll? It does have to be an average over the year.
It's the average pay.
What happens when the $350 billion is depleted?
Well, hopefully Congress, they're, as I said earlier, they're hoping to do another phase, maybe two. We are, we're obviously monitoring it very carefully, and as phase 4 is wheeled out, we're looking at ways to continue to put nonprofits first, and the issue of them running out of 350 billion. We would fight very hard to get that extended.
Could you please repeat the time frame?
February 15th, 2020 to June 30th, 2020. June 30th, 2020 is the deadline for applying.
Okay, this is a bit of a long question, so please bear with me. Isn't it that the payroll calculation period is from February 19th to January 20th, and the 2.5 times calculation is based on monthly average? However, anyone receiving our 100,000 must be prorated down, and that February 15th, 20 to June 30th, 20 is the eligible period for which the loan amount must be used.
Alvin,
Yeah, but yeah, I believe whatever would be the payroll between February 15th and June 30th, but whoever receives more than 100,000 would be only applying to the tune of 100,000 or less.
Okay. Is this also for sole proprietor or independent businesses?
Yes.
Yeah, they can apply.
We had an employee go out on disability in January, but due to return next month, so his salary now cannot be included in our estimate, correct?
I would talk to your bank on that.
What if you are a nonprofit organization of a fiscal agent? Who should apply?
The agency that is registered under 501c3, they are the ones who are eligible to apply.
Question regarding not billing for Ryan White employees as they are paid under a different contract. Do I exclude those 10 employees from the employee count we report under number of jobs?
So this is a question we get asked quite often, and we're looking for clarification. And we're hoping to have the doctor do a webinar here in the next week to provide more guidance on HRSA funding and those employees who are paid by HRSA.
Okay. Let's see. Let people know there's an outline of how to calculate average monthly payroll in the second paragraph on page number 3 of the application. This is not the final form, correct?
To be determined. I mean, it is the form that's being circulated now. So I couldn't say it's the final one. They may do a revised one at another time.
Maximum amount that we can apply is 10 million, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Can a nonprofit get the loan to pay for maintenance of a vacant property it cannot lease because of COVID?
No. It can be used to pay for the mortgage and lease, but cleaning, et cetera, is not included.
Okay. And it's payroll and benefits.
That's correct.
Yes.
If a staff member is put on temporary unemployment or furloughed approximately 6 weeks due to lack of work, can it still qualify for PPP?
I believe so, but that may be at the discretion of the bank. We don't have a precise answer on that.
Grant-funded salary, question about grant-funded salaries, we don't have a definitive answer on that, right? We're waiting for Dr. Cheever to give us more clarification on that, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Where can I find the form? Well, the final form is not available yet, but they should go to their bank for that, correct?
Through your bank.
Yeah, through the bank. The banks will have the form.
Okay. That was the last question we have so far. Any further questions from anyone? Oh, if the money is used maintaining payroll, how can you use monies for rent and utilities?
What's the
Could
question?
you repeat that?
Sure. If the money is to be used for maintaining payroll, how can you use monies for rent and utilities?
Because when you're applying all inclusive your rent, benefits, and payroll. So you will have to basically give the breakdown of what you're applying for.
What is the name of the form? I don't think we know the final name yet, do we?
It would be the PPA form, right? I think it should be CARES Act PPA, but we don't know the name. Yes.
Are all major banks participating?
Yes.
So I was asking for clarification on one question here. Where do you include rents, expenses, et cetera? I'm assuming he means on the form.
Yeah, that's what Paul mentioned, that the form is not inclusive. There might be changes, or maybe you need to talk to your bank how to put that. Maybe you may have to put an attachment or give additional details attached to that form.
Okay. Any further questions, anyone? If we have questions completing the form, who do we ask?
Your bank. Yeah. And there's a lot of information on the SBA.gov website on the PPP program, as well as eligibility, et cetera, calculations, the application. I'm assuming it'll be popped up there by tomorrow morning. So it's SBA.gov, and there you'll find a lot of information as well.
I assume all the numbers will be based off of the company financials at time of submitting application.
Yes.
Okay, folks. What was that last website?
SBA, that's B as in boy, .gov, G-O-V.
Yeah, and I'll include it in the chat box for everyone, sba.gov.
Yeah.
Yeah, the presentation will be available on NMAC's website tomorrow on the COVID-19 page. You can find the link to it on our homepage.
Thank you, Chip.
Any more questions?
Great. If there's no more questions, very much appreciate everybody taking the time. We recognize that this is uncharted waters, and it's kind of chaotic, it seems. Our intent here, as Paul indicated, was just to kind of guide you all to this program with the understanding that we don't have, as you know, all the answers. But we think it is important that we continue to drive what we can for you to help you weather the storm. In the weeks ahead, we will be putting together more webinars to kind of address issues that are coming to our attention as a result of the CARES Act, including we're trying to get, as you know, the doctor here next week to discuss the funding of Ryan White. So we will continue to send out alerts and emails. And in the meantime, you all have our email addresses. So if there's any other questions when we end this, feel free to let us know directly. Thank you, Alvin. Thank you, Chip. And please be safe, everybody, and listen to Dr. Felci and your local health providers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.